Baconators, mount up. Welcome to episode 13 of Bacon Shorts by Bacon Sports. I'm Rob Cressy. It's time to dish about the NFL Week 6 lines with Vegas Insider from Covers.com, my man, Jason Logan. Jason, who is your hashtag random athlete of the day?
We're jumping right into this, aren't we? We're not slowing it up at all. We're just getting right into it.
We're going fast and furious.
All right. Since the Jays came through with a huge Game 5 win, Joey Bats, can't see my back, but I've got the Batista jersey on. I'm bat flipping everything, but I'm going to take you back, Blue Jays old school. Jesse Barfield, right fielder, back in the 80s for the Jays, had a cannon for an arm. We were kids, we called him Jesse Barf on the field, which we thought was hilarious, which I still think is hilarious. So Jesse Barfield, my hashtag random athlete.
That is fantastic. Former New York Yankee outfielder as well. I was actually hoping you were going to say Devon White. I love me some Devo. My hashtag random athlete of the day, former Pittsburgh Steeler, whose birthday it is today. He goes by the name of Slash Cordell Stewart, the player Steelers fans loved to hate. For the era of slightly above mediocre to really good to atrocious, there's few roller coaster rides as high and as low as Cordell Stewart with Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so I mean, you could say he kind of paved the way for the next generation of quarterback now. Like guys like Vic and Cam Newton, these guys that could dual threat hybrid runners. Yeah, Slash could do it all.
Very much so. It's kind of surprising that the slash role, that was brand new for the NFL, that more players, it seems like no one has really been able to duplicate what he has to that extent. Now players are just more all around like that, but it was such a, what's going on here with this guy?
The Steelers love their hybrid guys. Those are Antoine Randall L. He could do it all too, and he'd throw touchdown passes and catch touchdown passes. I think they'd run him on like an end around and stuff like that. He was a slash as well.
Yeah, very much so. All right, so super fun show today. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the NFL Week 6 lines, but first we're going to talk about the prop pick of the week, where I will let you introduce this, Jason.
All right. Well, this is my prop pick of the week. Is actually going to be, and I hate to say this, but it's going to be Eli Manning. I'm a Cowboys fan. I don't know if you can see behind me, but I've got enough Cowboys paraphernalia in here. But Eli Manning, I like the over 2 touchdowns against the Eagles. It's minus 110. I think the under is at around minus 120, so it's a 30-point line or 30-cent line. I like Eli to get more than 2 touchdowns. That offense is looking good, and I'll explain a little later why I like Eli against the Eagles, why that game could get a little out of hand.
Cool. My only concern, I'm sure you'll get to that, is the injuries for the wide receivers, the uncertainty there. But once we talk about that game, we will dish about it. So you came up with a super interesting thing about Back to the Future. How about you explain this a little bit and we'll riff about it?
All right, well, big movie fan, and as a kid growing up in the 80s, loved Back to the Future movies, loved Back to the Future 2. They go to the future. They go to 2015, which seems so distant back then. The 2015 thing is kind of getting some run now because the movie actually said Cubs win the World Series, and as you know, the Cubbies are in the NLCS now. But one of the it's one of these things that's a subtle gambling movie, because Marty has this grand plan to take the sports almanac from 2015, travel back in time, give it to his younger self, or give it to himself and bet these games. However, old Biff Tannen, the bully, he gets his hands on it. He goes back in time, gives his younger self the sports almanac. Biff goes on to build this giant gambling empire, never loses, calls every game correct. So it got me kind of thinking, and I was actually asking some Las Vegas types and some online sportsbook operators, if you could travel back in time and bet a game, knowing the outcome, what one would you bet? And it's a question that everyone's kind of put in their head and been like, geez, if I had known, if I knew that, I would have put down, $10,000 on this underdog that stunned everyone. and you've been living in the lap of luxury right now.
Man, look at that cup. That is fantastic, my friend.
This is my Orlando Magic 25th anniversary cup. There's a Daryl Armstrong. That's Daryl Armstrong, and that's Victor Oladipo.
Wow.
We visited. We were in Orlando 2 years ago, and I went with my son and my father-in-law, who never, ever, ever watched basketball in his life. He had no idea. Simple questions, but he had a blast. My son ate so much candy that he actually threw up in my suitcase later on that night, which was not the best part, but him out dancing the cheerleaders. He got a couple Titantron or Jumbotron mentions. He was the all-star. He had his face all painted up. It was a good time.
Interesting fact, I lived in Orlando for a year, and Mrs. Bacon went to UCF, which is where this UCF cup came from.
Wow, everyone's hauling out the good cups today.
Right. Who knew this would be just an Orlando-centric podcast all of a sudden?
Yeah, whatever, NFL. Let's talk about the Magic.
All right. So, with your Biff Tannen Gambler's Almanac, which game or sporting event are you choosing to go back to?
I'm going back to 1990. I'm going back to James Buster Douglas KOing Iron Mike Tyson. I believe the fight was in Tokyo that February. He was a 42-1 underdog. No one saw this coming. And James Buster Douglas KOs him in the 10th. Goes on to do nothing but get fat. I think there was a Sega game, a James Buster Douglas Sega game after that. Everyone kind of jumped on the James Buster Douglas thing. And it's just one of those crazy things in sports. It kind of was Tyson's, his kind of downfall in the sport. But yeah, if I'm jumping in the DeLorean and gunning it to 88, I'm betting on Buster Douglas, 42-1.
So I am an action junkie more than the type of guy who's going to be putting down serious coin to try and win stuff. So I'm very rarely betting on someone like Buster Douglas, I guess you could say. I'll do it occasionally, but when I thought about this, I was like, well, what game is going to give me the biggest thrill from an action standpoint? And the first thing I thought of was, I want a backdoor cover. So, of course, this isn't going to make me as rich as you will with James Buster Douglas.
You can come over and swim in my pool whenever you want.
Exactly.
It's huge. It's huge.
I am going with, let's head back to January 3rd, 1993. Houston Oilers at Buffalo Bills NFL playoff game. The largest comeback in NFL playoff history. The Oilers up 28-3 at halftime. In comes Frank Reich to lead the Bills back, send it to overtime, gets them to win 41-38 as a 2-point favorite. How about that for a backdoor cover when you think all hope is lost? And imagine if, for a second, you're a Bills fan with that ticket as well. Not only are you vested in my team needs to go to advance to the next round of the playoffs, but you're holding that ticket, which is, by the way, why I never bet on the Steelers, because I don't want the conflict of interest in there. But how about that? The thrill of in comes the backup. All hope is lost, but then it happens. Greatest comeback in NFL history.
It's too bad that they didn't have live betting back then, because you could take a big score on that one, because the odds would be so insurmountable,
right?
And you get the live action. But I'm sure you could sit there and wager with some guys in the bar or guys sitting next to you at the game and say, hey, they're going to come back and win this one. Oh yeah, really? Yeah, I bet they're going to come back. How much you want to bet? And you could make some money that way too.
So what I would be interested in is the live wagering odds for some of the largest comebacks in sports history. So take that exact example and say, all right, if there was going to be a live wagering at halftime of that game, or I'm trying to think some other historic games, but doing that where you take the situation and they're like, all right, the Bills minus what at the time would have been as 28-3. So Bills minus 26 in the second half would have been, what would the payout of something like that have been?
On a money line, you're looking at like 30-1 paying out, somewhere around those ranges.
Right.
30-41, if they even offered it. That's the thing. Now,
Right.
back then, they didn't they had live wagering was it was taking hold overseas, but in North America, it's still growing. In Vegas, it's still limited. The online company's been doing it for a long time now.
All right. So let's move to the NFL Week 6 lines. And
Hmm.
first thing I want to know, who are the Sharps betting this week?
This is an interesting game. The Cincy and Buffalo game. Buffalo actually opened -1, as low as -1, so they were actually the favorite for this game. And sharp money and public money came in on the Bengals and pushed this line as high as +3.5 Bills. And that's when sharps bought back the Bills with that half-point hook. And now you're seeing this line at +3, Cincy -3 on the road. So what it really looks like, and we talked about this last week, sharp money came in, knew the public would love to bet the undefeated Bengals, pushed this line, jumped on that steam, moved it, and now they're betting back double, triple the other side. They're looking to scalp this line from the books. So they're getting the Bills, who, like I said, were opened as low as a -1 favorite, +3.5 at home, and now it's down to around a field goal now. And I don't know if you're going to see that half-point hook anymore.
So, what effect does the EJ Manuel versus Tyrod Taylor at quarterback have in this?
It definitely would have a big part in it. It's huge in the public's mind. EJ Manuel is a guy that was the starter to enter the year or enter training camp and gets bussed back to, carrying water bottles. Taylor is a versatile quarterback. If he doesn't have, even if he plays and that ankle is not 100%, since he's going to test him, they're going to try to roll him out of the pocket. They're going to try to get him on the run and see how healthy that ankle is. In the public mind, it's a big thing, and that's what the Sharps were considering. We're saying, okay, the public is going to see this. They're going to see that Taylor's not 100%, or he may not play, and we're going to steam this line, and then we're going to buy back as soon as we get the line that we want. So that's what you're getting right now.
Man, it seems so tough from a public perception to want to be backing Buffalo with EJ Manuel in there. No Carlos Williams, no LaShawn McCoy, no Sammy Watkins. There's just a whole bunch of where are the points going to be coming from, and you're relying on this Bills defense to essentially carry you guys to victory with you don't know where anything else is coming.
Bills top to bottom probably have one of the better teams talent-wise. They're very solid at just about every single position. And heading into the year, it was kind of every single position but quarterback. But Taylor's played, out of his mind right now. He practiced Thursday. McCoy practiced Thursday. I think Watkins is in there. I don't know if you saw him doing those silly over-the-head-shoulder catch drills, bouncing balls off his helmet, but he looks ready to go. So I think the Sharps are they were laying in the weeds a little bit, waiting for the public to overreact to this, and now they're buying back, and it looks like Buffalo may have some of those guys back.
All right. The Bankers game, what is the game that the books are sweating the most?
This is the Patriots-Colts game. It's the biggest game of the week. It's the Sunday Night Football game. It's the Deflategate revenge game. There's so much that goes into this game. Are the Patriots going to come out and get revenge on the Colts for blowing the whistle? Are the Colts going to get revenge for the Patriots cheating in the AFC Championship? It's like a title fight. They're just selling it so great. The big thing is that the ticket count is huge on the Patriots right now. Parlays, straight bets, teasers, everybody's playing the Patriots. It's like a 10-to-1 ratio, Patriots tickets to Colts tickets. However, if you look at the money, the bigger bets are coming in on the Colts, and as at midweek, they actually had more money on the Colts because the bigger bettors had bought this. It opened +8.5. Books shaded this line a bit, not knowing if Andrew Luck was going to play or not. They took that 8.5, moved it down to 7. I think some places now are up as high as 10. So this line has bounced around a lot. The Patriots have been in some very interesting line move games between this and the Dallas game last week. But this is the one game the books are going to be sweating. All that early action, especially if the favorites do well in the early afternoon games, it's all going to be tied to this Sunday night game. And it's all going to be tied to the Patriots. So there's going to be some Colts fans behind the counter in Las Vegas.
So if you wanted to bet the Colts, would you recommend take them now knowing that Andrew Luck looks like he's going to play? Or do you say, let's wait until game time, see if you can get that 10.5? I mean, for me, I'd want to lock in 10 if I wanted the Colts because it's on the key number.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's nothing wrong about taking the 10 and then waiting and taking a 10.5 if it does show up. I don't think it's going to go to 10.5. That puts them in a very difficult spot
Right.
between that 7 and a 10.5. There's a lot of room to middle that game. And if you are looking for someone that's trying to score two paydays off of one game, maybe you can middle this if you got in on the early odds. But the ten is probably as high as it's going to go. But like I said, you can bet it now and wait and bet it later. There's no harm in that.
All right. So let's talk about home field advantage.
Sure.
Is it currently being overvalued?
This is one thing I'm kind of looking at this week. I've talked to some odds makers. I've talked to some bookmakers. I've talked to professional gamblers about this. The standard for home field, at least for football, is 3 points. That's what the bettor thinks. And talking to odds makers, they say as long as the betting public thinks that it's 3 points for home field, so it's this person's rating or this team's rating versus this team's rating, put them together, you get that equation, then you tack on 3 points for home field. As long as the betting public thinks that's the way that they do the lines, that's the way that they're going to do the lines. Last week, home teams were 3-10-1 ATS, and they haven't been that great, actually. They've only covered 44% on the year, heading into week 6 now. So talking to some professional handicappers, they do agree that, yeah, home field can be overvalued. You look at a team like Seattle last year, this is a home team that they have that 12th man. The weather's not always conducive there for the other teams. They get rain, they get cold, they get wind. CenturyLink could be worth as many as 5 points in some situations. This year, maybe that home field advantage isn't there, or maybe the Seahawks just aren't as good, so you can't inflate that home field advantage that much. Talking to the handicappers, they were saying, it's still very situational, but they do say that it's come down. Like 3 points, they say home field might be worth 2.75 points now, or 2.7 points now, which is something they kind of work into their power ratings. And then they see opportunities where you can go against a home team if the home field advantage is overrated. A place like Jacksonville, like how much is that home field worth? It's not worth 3 points.
Or San Diego?
Or San Diego, where they just don't care. It's beautiful there. They've got other things to do than sit around and watch football and waste their day. They want to move it to LA. So yeah, I mean these are home fields where you might be able to play against the home side, knowing that it's not worth 3 points. These trends do to 10, they will even themselves out over the course of the season. I wouldn't say go out and blindly bet against home teams in week 6, but it's definitely something where you can pick your spots, see which teams are overrated at home, might not get the best boost from the home fans, and you can find value in those lines.
All right, so let's popcorn our way through the rest of the games in NFL Week 6, starting with Browns at home, 4-point underdogs to the Broncos.
Yeah, this one I opened 4.5, so it's come down a bit. There is some early money on the Browns. This will be a public game that they'll see the slow line, they'll see Denver, and they'll want to bet the Broncos. So I expect it to go the other way before kickoff on Sunday. The one thing I've looked at in this game, I looked at it in my weekly mismatches column. McCown and the Browns have loved to play deep strike. They've had big plays. They've had 40 plays of 15 yards or more in the last 4 weeks, which is the most in the NFL. McCown looks like, he looks like Tom Brady out there slinging the rock. But this is a Denver defense that loves to blitz. They don't give the quarterback that much time. They lead the league with 22 sacks. I don't think McCown's going to have enough time to allow those big plays to develop. He's not going to be able to find Travis Benjamin streaking down the sideline because he's going to be on his back before he can get the ball out. So this is one of those interesting mismatches, the ones that I look for each week, where you've got a team that needs time to develop the offense and a defense that isn't going to give them any time. So,
interesting fact: Josh McCown has averaged 47 pass attempts over the last 3 games.
Yeah, it's one of these kind of ones you want to rub your eyes. It's bonkers. I don't know if it's going to hold up. I'm kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on McCown.
Oh, very much so. All right,
Boom,
Vikings at home taking on the Chiefs. Vikings are 3.5-point favorites.
The Jamal Charles injury is a big impact on this. I mean, he was the bell cow back. He was the motor for this offense. He really kept the pressure off of Alex Smith, who has just been, sacked. I think he's been sacked, 22 times, which is tied for second in the league. Without the defense respecting the running backs, and they do have some talented guys back there, but they're not Jamal Charles. The Vikings have an underrated defense. They're a very good team. I think they bring the house, and it's going to be a long day for Alex Smith if they can't get that offensive line, giving him time to get rid of the ball.
A loss here, and when do the start Chase Daniels chirps start getting a little louder?
I don't know. It's if people can see that the offensive line isn't protecting him. You lose your best player. Chase Daniel, Alex Smith at this point. I'm still going with Alex Smith. At least he can run. Like, Alex Smith is an underrated runner. He can scramble. He can make some plays with his legs. So he may be on the go against the Vikings this weekend.
So do you think then the hate on Alex Smith just because he can't throw the ball downfield is a little bit overreactionary?
I think so. I don't think it's entirely his fault. I mean, the guy, we're kind of asking him to be a little more than he is. He's kind of a glorified game manager. You look at that wide receiver stat where they finally got one to Macklin. It was the first time in like 2 years that they did that. But we're kind of asking too much of Alex Smith. He is what he is. Right. And if the offensive line can't protect him, it doesn't matter who you have, but you could have Joe Namath back there, and he's not going to have time to get rid of the ball.
All right, Jaguars at home taking on the Texans. Jaguars 1-point favorites.
It's going to be a long day for your boy Blake Bortles. A long day. He's got that shoulder injury, which is why this line, it opened pick, and now it's -1 Jags. J.J. Watt has just decimated the Jaguars. 8 games, I think he has 11.5 sacks, and I wrote it down here, and 6 of those sacks are on Bortles. In 2 games against Blake Bortles, 6 of those sacks there. So if his shoulder hurt now, his shoulder's definitely going to hurt by the end of this one.
Wake me up when the Texans actually do something.
Watt is one of those players, at least against a team like the Jaguars, Watt is one of those players where he can just single-handedly win a game. And with this being a very slim line, that's all you need.
2 DFS plays that I like, Arian Foster and DeAndre Hopkins. Even though the Jaguars' defense, from a fantasy perspective, is good-ish against wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, I believe, is now an elite wide receiver. He is ridiculously good.
No Cecil Shorts this week? No?
Right.
No Cecil Shorts love? No?
Yeah, or some Nate Washington love while we're at it?
Nope. No.
All right, next game, we've got the Detroit Lions taking on the Chicago Bears. Lions favored by 3, which sounds absolutely disgusting considering how bad this Lions team is. This seems like a do-or-die Matthew Stafford. If he loses this game, the wheels for his career might be falling off in Detroit as a quarterback. This is a game they have to win.
I know how much you deep down inside hate Matthew Stafford because every week you just want to pile on Matthew Stafford. I wanted to give you time to just lay into Matthew Stafford. But with this one, and this is one of these things I looked at in my mismatches column, Detroit's offense, which has kind of been a pop gun, it really hasn't been able to get anything going. Amir Abdullah has to stay out of the movie theaters because he has butterfingers.
Nice.
But this one is the Lions really thrive on yards after the catch, so they make the pass and then they pick up those additional yards with the receivers and the running backs being able to make plays with their legs. The Bears, a good pass defense this year, and they're one of the best teams at limiting yards after the catch. They're quick to the ball. They're good tacklers. So this is one where they're not going to give the Lions any extra points. The Bears, whether they've won back-to-back and covered back-to-back, they've got some momentum going into this, and the Lions just nothing's working for them. Stafford gets benched. There's a lot going against this team right now. It is one of those head-scratcher lines, but that's what the power ratings came up with. So if you have an opinion that the Bears are the better bet, then go for it. Don't be afraid to, you don't always have to be contrarian.
Interesting tidbit for you on the Detroit Lions. Theo Riddick, their running back, is currently 13th in the NFL in receptions, the same amount as Jordan Matthews and Brandon Marshall, and more receptions than Amari Cooper and Randall Cobb.
Jeez. And picking up a ton of yards after the catch.
Yeah, shout out to Theo Riddick. All right, next we got my Pittsburgh Steelers at home, 3.5-point underdogs to the Arizona Cardinals.
A tough line. 3-3. It opened 3. It's up to 3.5. So there is some Arizona money coming in. The Steelers look okay without Big Ben. Vic is doing well. He's making plays. They were able to get that win last week. But it's a short week now. They play a very physical, very fast Arizona team. And this is actually the third game in 18 days for them, too. So it's a tough schedule spot for them. There might not be a whole lot left in the tank. And Arizona is a team that will punish you with the run game, make you run downfield with the long pass. And then their defense loves to blitz. They love to mix it up. Very, very fast. That secondary is tons of fun to watch. This could be one of the games of the day. And then you have the Brown versus Patterson matchup. It's a lot to watch in this one.
So the Steelers, though, have a good run defense, which is interesting. So I'm looking at Carson Palmer throwing the ball a little bit more, even though Chris Johnson, did you realize he is second in the NFL in rush yards?
I think I did, because it's one of these things where you play fantasy, you play daily fantasy, you keep your eye on these things. It's a guy that nobody wanted. My Cowboys passed on him. Like, he could be, mowing down guys in Big D right now, but instead he's been kind of the workhorse for this Arizona offense, and he's keeping the defense honest. He's keeping them off Carson Palmer, which is what that franchise wants. They want to preserve that knee and preserve that big contract. I
don't know how the Steelers are going to score 20 points. Watching Michael Vick, the offense just doesn't flow as well. I know he had the big play to Marcus Wheaton and then the drive to win the game at the end, but sort of similar to Alex Smith, the Steelers aren't asking Michael Vick to make plays. They're asking him to not turn the ball over. So even though our expectation is, how is he not getting the ball to Antonio Brown? You have to step back and say, wait a second, he's not. If he gets through the game with 0 turnovers, that is a success, and you hope Le'Veon Bell, the defense, and maybe figure out a way to grind out a game like they did against San Diego. I think that's the only way that they're going to be able to win this game.
Yeah, I think if Brown and Patterson can kind of cancel out each other, they take each other out of the play. He doesn't want to throw over there, and it keeps Patterson occupied. I got Le'Veon Bell in fantasy. Give it to him. Let him run with it.
Right.
Let him make some plays. The guy is phenomenal. He's just so much fun to watch. Good Michigan State boy.
Yeah, I really liked him at Michigan State too, and he was much bigger.
Yeah.
All right, next game, we got Tennessee Titans at home as a 1-point favorite taking on the Miami Dolphins. And can you believe we're saying the Titans are a favorite over the Dolphins? If you would have thought about this before the season started?
No, if you want to look at it from when the season started, the hopes were very high in Miami.
Right.
But as far as right now, a lot of people do like the Fins. This opened as a field goal spread, and it's 1.5. Titans are favored by 1.5. So there is some early money taking the Dolphins. They're coming off the bye week. They clean house on the coaching staff. They have a ton to prove on this game. This is really a make-or-break game for them. If they can come out and win this, it's a huge shot in the arm for them, a huge boost. If they lose this game, especially against the Titans, they're not world beaters. It definitely is going to deflate this, and I think you could just put a stake in Miami's heart if they lose this game.
All right, next game's one of the ones I'm most excited for on the slate. We have the Seahawks at home taking on the Panthers as 7-point favorites.
The spread worries me because the Seahawks haven't been that great in the fourth quarter. They've allowed 8.4 points in the fourth quarter. You get a big spread like this hovering around a touchdown, it just reeks of backdoor cover. This might be your game, Rob. I know you're the backdoor man. You love this stuff. So Carolina comes in. They don't have a whole lot of options on offense, but they do get a great defense. They get Kuechly back. They throw a lot at Seattle. Seattle's had trouble protecting Russell Wilson. So they get a couple plays from their defense. This is going to be an interesting game. There wasn't a whole lot of action on this game. It's a pretty solid spread, 6.5, 7. The public may be souring on the Seahawks after, just not playing up to standards. But the Seahawks have beat up on the Panthers in recent years. And I believe last year they played the Panthers in a kind of a similar situation where they weren't living up to the hype. And they went out and smacked Carolina, put a beating on Cam Newton. And that was kind of the turning point for their season.
So I have sort of I don't know if it's a conflict, but it's hard to figure out this Seattle team because the expectations are that they could blow this game out in Seattle, where we know home field advantage is probably more beneficial there than most other places out there. You see the lack of offensive weapons in Carolina. It's Cam Newton and nothing else, but the defense is what's done well. And I just think from a Joe Public standpoint, you see, man, the Seahawks could blow this out. It's very similar to how people perceive the Packers and the Patriots, maybe not to the extent because of how good those offenses are, but there's still the aura of Seattle hasn't figured it out yet. Can this be the game that they do it against a team that doesn't necessarily scare you, that people perceive is playing better than they really are?
Yeah, like I said a couple weeks ago, have an opinion. It's the time of the year where you can have an opinion on teams and have a very solid opinion on this. So, I mean, if you're waiting around for the Seahawks to show up, you might be waiting around to week 16, week 17. This could be the very telling game. They're at home. This is a situation where they're favored big. If they can live up to the odds maker standards, then maybe, yeah, they do turn this around. But we haven't seen that, that same fire and that same just dominance from the Seahawks. Lucky to win against the Lions, and they could be a lot worse off than they are right now. So I'm not buying the Seahawks. I'm having an opinion on the Seahawks. I don't think they're as good as everyone thinks.
Even though Marshawn Lynch has been injured and Jimmy Graham hasn't gotten into the flow of the offense, and you have to think as the season progresses and maybe even till next year before Jimmy Graham really molds with that offense.
The tight ends are mainly used as blockers, and they have been with this Pete Carroll offense. So this is something that Jimmy Graham's not really used to. He's the star of the show. It wouldn't surprise me maybe if they open it up a little bit for him, but this is what the offense is. This is how we do things in Seattle. It works, obviously, and it may just be kind of play or sit for him.
All right, cool. Packers at home, 10.5-point favorites against the San Diego Chargers.
I don't think this line could go high enough, and people would still. You could give the Chargers 20 points, and you'd still get Packers money. It opened 9.5. It's up to 10.5 now, which is a very tempting number to take the Chargers, especially since the Chargers can get things going on offense. Phillip Rivers is having another good year. They got Antonio Gates back last week. He was awesome. Won me some money in daily fantasy. Was big in my season-long fantasy. They definitely have some weapons. This may turn out to be kind of a tit-for-tat slugfest back and forth with the Packers. Tough travel spot for the Chargers. It's a short week. They go to Lambeau. It's supposed to be a little chilly. It's not San Diego weather, that's for sure. But this is going to be another one of those games where the public is going to be on the Packers because they just haven't slowed down. 5-0 straight up, 5-0 ATS. I did run some numbers looking at how teams that have won and covered in their first 5 games have done the rest of the season. And as you can imagine, the lines will inflate a bit. They haven't, it's still very close to kind of a 50-50 proposition, but the lines will get big. They'll face kind of an average spread of 5 points. They haven't, I think it was like 40, they cover like 47% of the time. So there is some value to go against those teams, but until the Packers show you that they won't cover a spread or they can cover a spread, why not keep pulling the trigger on Aaron Rodgers? I think they get to bye next week, so this is a big game. They get Devontae Adams is back. They have a couple other guys healthy too. This is a team that has been banged up and still playing well.
And here's the scary thing. Aaron Rodgers says the last few weeks the Packers offense has not been in sync. And Aaron Rodgers, only one 300-yard passing game so far this year. All right.
I like Eddie Lacy. Eddie Lacy could be a nice daily fantasy pickup in this one.
Yeah, very much contrarian.
Hasn't had a touchdown. Yeah, he hasn't had a touchdown since week 1. I think Rodgers actually outrushed him last week. So I think they get Eddie Lacy going again. They want to get back to the basics for this.
Last 3 games, 49ers at home taking on the Ravens. Ravens favored by 2.
Well, we talked zombie teams last week before. San Francisco definitely looks like a zombie team. They opened field goal underdog. It's 2, so there is some action on them. This is a tough spot for the Ravens. They've played 4 of their first 6 games on the road now. The Niners looked good against the Giants. They put up a fight. The big thing I looked at, another mismatches plug, is going to be that the Niners actually do well on third downs. Bolden has been their big third down receiver, and Kaepernick, of course, can make plays with his legs. The Ravens have been dismal at getting teams off the field on third down. I think they're allowing it's over 49%, which is just behind Jacksonville, I think, as far as the worst third down defense in the NFL. So the Niners could keep the chains moving. And like I said, tough travel spot for Baltimore. I look at this line and I just think, why is Baltimore favored at all?
The 49ers are better at home than they are on the road. They've been getting torched on the road. I think that you see two separate teams, San Fran versus away from there. All right. Colts at home taking on the Patriots. You briefly talked about that. Patriots favored anywhere between 9.5 and potentially 10. Any quick thoughts on that one that we haven't mentioned?
The Pats are quick starters. They average over 17 points per first half. They come out firing. The Colts have been slow starters, whether it's and they've actually been a faster starter with Hasselbeck under center the last 2 weeks. They average just over a touchdown per half. So, I mean, this one could get out of hand very, very quickly. If you're of the school of thought that the Patriots want to come out there and put it on the Colts for, blowing the whistle on the whole Deflategate thing, there's no harm in betting the Patriots. I mean, they've shown nothing that would tell us that, hey, maybe we shouldn't bet the Patriots. Like I said, this line has jumped around. It opened 8.5 with book shading, thinking Luck may or may not play. They kind of want to give themselves that cushion. It got bet down to a touchdown, and now it's up plus 10, like we talked about. If you can get plus 10.5, grab it. But I don't see it going back over 10 because there's too much of a liability there to have that spread that high compared to how low it was earlier in the week.
Last game, Monday night, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Giants. Eagles are 4-point favorites.
This ties into my prop pick. I know that Beckham's dinged up. Victor Cruz isn't there. But Manning's been able to make some plays with his arms. The Eagles, bad third down defense. They haven't been able to get teams off the field. And that wears on that defense. And their defense has been playing well, too. The Giants have been one of the better teams on third downs. They have some options. The running backs are starting to get some traction. I really like their offensive line. They've done a good job protecting Manning, giving him time to find guys downfield. With Beckham out, this it's a different game. They definitely have to change their playbook up. But you got guys like Larry Donnell, and I know how much you love Ruben Randall point in the season. But they do have guys that can catch the ball and make plays, and that's why I did like the Eli Manning over 2 touchdowns. I think this one there's not going to be anyone getting off the field on third down. I think it kind of erupts into a higher scoring game.
I like this Giants team. That's one of the opinions. I've liked them because this is the second year in the offensive system for Eli Manning. I think their offense is good, and we've just seen so much inconsistency from Philadelphia, and I think everyone wants to believe that Philadelphia is going to continue to explode like they did last week. But I don't believe that one game against the Saints makes the season.
Yeah, I don't want to see them explode. I hate these teams. These are the two teams that I hate the most in the NFL. Being a Cowboys fan, Eagles number 1, Giants number 2. Sorry, Dad, my dad's a Giants fan. But these are teams I just, I want everyone to get hurt in this game. Everyone gets hurt, and they have to close up shop for the rest of the season. Cowboys win the division.
All right, Jason. Time for you to give us some plugs. What are you working on? Where can we find your stuff? Let's do it.
All right, well, covers.com. We've got everything. It's a huge week for college. Awesome week for college. We were trying to figure out what our game of the day was going to be for tomorrow, and you've got Michigan, Michigan State. You've got Alabama, Texas A&M. You've got Florida, LSU. There's so much to choose from. It's a great week. We've got stuff from Joe Fortenbaugh coming in later today. All the college action. We'll have our college cheat sheet. So if you have zero time to handicap games and you want to bet the biggest games on the board, we've got our top 25 cheat sheet. Follow us on Twitter for all the breaking injury news, line moves, where the sharp action's going. As far as NFL Sunday, I've got my mismatches column, which is up now. Find some underlying mismatches that may give you some hidden value on the line. And I'm doing my muff punt column as always today. That'll be out later. Good fun take. We'll be talking more about those back to the future situations, looking at the Packers, looking at some 5-0 teams, looking at primetime games as well, and having a lot of fun with that. Has some daily fantasy aspects, a couple prop picks in there. It's a fun column.
Sneaky combo play for you for DFS. Colin Kaepernick and Anquan Bolden.
That's the third down combo. As I talked about against the Ravens, they have a crappy third down defense, and it's been Kaepernick to Anquan Bolden on third down.
Yes. Awesome, Jason. So much fun. As always, you guys definitely should check out covers.com, an unbelievable resource. We will be back next week, and have an awesome weekend, my friend.
Go Jays, go!
Boom shakalaka.